The Times, Jose's special comeback. That's him looking very intense. His fist raised, and also the picture of the ball boy there. So that's the London Times. And then funding threat after scandal. The 27 million public funding package for UK athletics is under threat after it was forced to cancel the appointment of his new CEO over her husband's inappropriate relationship with an underage girl. I never delved into the details of that, but that phraseology is not, I'm not sure it goes far enough. Anyway, Aubameyang scraps talks. This is the beginning of it now, isn't it? Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang has shelved contract talks with Arsenal amid concerns over the club's ability to compete for trophies and qualify for the Champions League next season. He's already on 200 grand a week, and it expires at the end of next season. So they've got plenty of time.
Apparently, though, Jack Wilshere was in a similar situation, and he kind of like turned the screw. Aaron Ramsey, when he got down to the final 2 years, started to turn the screw as well. Sanchez was in a similar situation. They've been burnt by the 2-year window before.
How have
Arsenal.
they burned? No burn getting rid of Wilshere or Sanchez.
Like Ramsey was, though. And like
Ramsey getting no money for Ramsey, not great.
There's fears around Mesut Ozil in, I think, a similar situation as well.
No fears. Off you go.
It's financial. It's
go.
It's an asset that you're not really getting any money back on whatsoever.
Is Mesut Ozil worth a $5 million to Fenerbahce at this point? Maybe.
Of course he is.
Is he?
Mesut Ozil is
rubbish.
Outside of Aubameyang, Arsenal's best player. He's Arsenal's best player after.
Is he trying a leg at the minute?
Is he what?
Trying a leg.
No.
Right, so no, come on, get him out.
Well, of course, that is it's not just based on your attributes. The most important attribute is attitude, Ger, and it's a big fat zero for Mesut Ozil on that front.
Yeah, well,
that's London Times story is interesting. There was a line in it which I hadn't seen before, which kind of shows just how much pressure Unai Emery is under. He was due to take part at Guillaume Balaguer's masterclass series at University Campus of Football Business in London on Friday, but the event has been cancelled.
Oh.
So Unai Emery is clearly in a position, himself and Guillaume on the phone. Listen, Guillaume, not going to be able to make that, cancel the whole event, mate. Barcelona are considering the move for Aubameyang is the line from that. And then the other Arsenal story this morning is on the back of the Irish Daily Mail, setting their sights on Nuno Espirito Santo. Another story about a potential Arsenal manager, a double byline here, and no real information, to be quite honest. It just says that Raul Sanllehi has a long-standing relationship with Jorge Mendes, and that's it.
So what's going on?
He represents Santo.
And so what? So
the two pieces of information in this article are, one, that Sanllehi, who is football director at Arsenal, has a relationship with Jorge Mendes.
So they're interested in getting.
Yeah, if you want to make that leap. And the other thing is that Arsenal don't want to, or know that it'll be difficult to appoint a manager who's at a club already mid-season, so that they might actually give Lundberg and Steve Bold the job until the end of the year. I don't know, that's not a news story, it's an exclusive, it's a double byline at the back of the Irish Mail.
That is news, right? That they're interested in the Wolves manager, we didn't know that before.
But like, it's emerged as a leading candidate rather than Arsenal being interested. They've said that this guy has a relationship with this guy, therefore they must be interested in the person. So I'm not convinced. I'm just seeing these stories about Pochettino. I'm seeing these stories now about Nuno. I just don't see any meat on the bone in these stories that Arsenal are actually interested in making a move.
Would you take him?
You would take him over Unai Emery. In the list of candidates, he'd be right behind Pochettino, I would actually say. He'd be fighting for Mikel Arteta for that second spot, I would say, and then Allegri as your fourth choice. The main story there, though, is Harry is Jose's hero.
The Racing Post. Coleman purring over OK Corral in Ladbrokes. Aidan Coleman already relishing the ride in Paisley Park at Newbury on Friday. Could be in line for a dream 24 hours in Berkshire after it emerged he would likely partner the Nicky Henderson trained OK Corral, 6-1 favourite for Saturday's Ladbrokes Trophy, and hopes high Kenboy will get entry for Savills Chase. Brett Graham, a significant shareholder in the Band Supreme Horse Racing Club, is confident Kenboy will be among the entries for the Savills Chase at Leopardstown when they close at noon today. So we'll keep an eye on that story for you across the day on offtheball.com. And then top dogs, Liverpool versus Napoli. Liverpool to seal last 16 spot as group winners. That's the expectation is.
The Guardian lead with Spurs naturally, 4-2 against Olympiacos last night, and striking impact is the headline. Mourinho's home debut marked by a stirring win, and that article I mentioned by Jonathan Liu. Prowling like a particularly haughty house cat, Mourinho had done it again. That is the story from the Champions League last night.
So, you saw Killian Sheridan tweeting last night?
Oh, what was his latest tale?
Pochettino's 15-year-old son, Daniele, where is it? Incredible, you couldn't write the stuff. The ball boy that helped Spurs win their second goal is Pochettino's youngest son, Flavio, who plays in the under-15s at Spurs. So, in our comments right now on YouTube, it's like, Paul Leonard, someone was saying the ball boy's Poch's son. That can't be true. Trevor Costello, yeah, I heard that as well. Plays for the under-15s at Spurs. And then James and then, Jesus, that can't be right. He would have left with his dad. Lads. To Paul Leonard, Trevor Costello and James Lennon, I salute you. And I've got a chocolate teapot to sell you here as well. The Israeli Sports Channel just quoted this as something real, according to somebody on Twitter last night as well. So, Killian Sheridan, his fake news account, is reeling them in.
Back page of the Sun this morning is let's hear it for the boy. Quick thinking, Kieran Kane to the rescue. Ilkay and sloppy City dig. Manchester City drew 1-1 with Shakhtar last night, but they've qualified as group winners anyway. And West Ham are eyeing David Moyes. So we've got a battle royale between West Ham United and Everton for the services of David Moyes.
I don't understand it.
If you had told me that David Moyes has already managed West Ham in the last 3 years, I'd be like, oh yeah, fair enough. I remember that period.
Do you, though?
You could actually make that up and be like, oh yeah, that happened. Like, it all just gets jumbled into the whole Sunderland era, the post-Manchester United era. Is it Sociedad? Is it Sunderland? Is it West Ham? Did he manage Middlesbrough for a while? You could name any of those clubs at me and I'd be like, yeah, fair enough, David Moyes. I just thought it's just such an irrelevance what happened to David Moyes after Manchester United for me.
Yeah, but he did manage West Ham, you know that, right?
Yeah, I did.
I wasn't sure if you were...
But then when I actually thought about it this morning, I was like, hold on a minute. He actually did manage West Ham United.
Yeah.
And so it's an actual return to West Ham rather than a first time. So it's 2 returns possibly on the cards.
Well, it's
for
his,
David
you know,
Moyes.
obviously he's a good lover.
He clearly is.
His exes want to go and duke it out for him.
Well, I'm like, you're completely against the whole Everton going for David Moyes thing. Is it too romantic to say that Everton would be a better fit for David Moyes and vice versa than West Ham would be? I think the answer to that question is probably yes.
I'm not sure. I don't know if any of these are fit for Moyes at the moment, are they? Like, Moyes needs to get out there and prove again that he can do what he used to be able to do. And I don't know if there's anywhere that he's done that recently enough. I mean, look, he kept West Ham up that time, but I don't even remember that team playing particularly good football. The Star this morning, game of throw-ins. Hey, do you know what they're doing there? Do you see
I've heard about that television show.
I mean, it's the Game of Thrones Twitter account tweeted "Winter's coming" 2 days ago, and it immediately exploded. I think it's the first time they've tweeted anything in a while.
Winter arrived a while ago now.
I know, unless there's like, look, that was we're sorry about that. We've actually got the real final season coming. We've changed our minds.
It's actually a parody.
It's a choose your own adventure. So they've got the Aubameyang story. Real and Barcelona both apparently in for them. I don't believe that Real have any interest in Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. I can't see that being part of their way of signing things at the moment, unless they're going to swap somebody out for it. And Cork City could be the target of a New Year takeover by a locally based consortium. John Caulfield would be in line to return as manager if the deal goes through. So a bit of intrigue around Cork City at the moment as well.
The Daily Telegraph leads with comeback kings, Kane double, quick thinking ball boy, and early substitution give Mourinho opening home win and Champions League progress. The Herald then goes with Jurgen Klopp. Let's top it all off. Reds boss wants Euro place sewn up early. Picture there of Serge Aurier celebrating with Christian Eriksen and Spurs 4-2 win last night. Dublin reward for North, meanwhile. Northern Ireland's reward for a possible Euro 2020 playoff win over the Republic next year would be the guarantee of 2 group games at the finals in Dublin. And then the story that's been running all week in the Herald, the 50 best dubs of the millennium.
What numbers are we into 30 to 20?
30 to 21, yeah. At number 30, you've got Paddy Christie. Number 29, you've got Conal Keaney. Number 28 is Shane Ryan. J.O. is at number 27. Ger Brennan is number 26. At number 25, we have Barry Cahill. Number 24 is Dennis Bastick. Paddy Andrews comes in at number 23. Brian Cullen is 22. And Brian Howard is number 21.
Brian Howard, only 21. What was his first year? 2017?
2018, I think, actually.
So he's only two All-Ireland medals?
Yeah, I think it's only his second season, yeah.
Is it? All right, okay, fair enough. Well, that's pretty good to have 1/5 of the available time and to be in the top 20, top 21.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like it's been unbelievable start to his career. But the top 20 obviously is going to be tough to break into. No Kieran Whelan yet, so he might be the only one of the non-All-Ireland winning bunch who will make this top 20.
So who's the top ranking non-All-Ireland winner so far? Paddy Christie. Paddy Christie won All-Ireland?
Barry Cahill. Oh, no. No, Barry Cahill was there in 2011. J.O.
Jay obviously won in the
95,
90s.
but not of the current generation.
Yeah.
Shane Ryan? Shane Ryan wasn't there in 2011.
No.
So he's currently...
Shane Ryan won an All-Star and then they didn't have room for him in the squad the next year. That was the
ruthless nature of Dublin in the noughties.
Well, it was Pat Gilroy who came in. He was... they were like, look, that's not what we're looking for from our players with transition. The Mirror this morning. Jose's Greek gifts. Eek! Is highlighted there so you can tell that, it was difficult enough for them. Barca and Real set to move on. Unhappy Aubameyang is the story that everybody seems to have. West Ham and Everton in battle for Moyes. And Shaq and Bohr. Man City were well below their best. They qualified for the Champions League group stages last night is the headline on that one.
Irish Times lead with Spurs last night. Spirited Tottenham come back. A fitting welcome for Jose Mourinho. A couple of interesting stories in the Irish Times as well. Today, a bit more detail on the 4-year ban, which will not affect Russia's Euro 2020 participation. And I'll tell you why it's not going to affect their Euro 2020 participation. It's because the international standard for code compliance by signatories, the famous ISCCS,
Great, yeah.
which sets out the rules for anti-doping breaches, does not define UEFA as a major event organisation. So you can only ban Russia with a blanket ban for major events.
So the World
Euro
Cup.
2020, not going to be a major event. Has nothing to do, of course, with the fact that Russia are going to be hosting some of Euro 2020 in St. Petersburg. It's to do with the fact that UEFA is only concerned with a single sport and it isn't global. So this could be lifted or could be brought in again for Qatar 2022 were they to be suspended. A blanket ban could come in. Like it's a story that obviously has been kind of doing the rounds for a while. The lifting of the blanket ban after the last Winter Olympics and then the controversy over handing over data. WADA weren't happy with that, USADA weren't happy with that, and the data provided in January was neither complete nor fully authentic when it was handed over, and that some of the alleged deletion of data took place in December 2018 and January 2019 after WADA had requested the data under the terms of reinstatement. Very handy if somebody kind of shows up and you can just press delete before handing this stuff over. It's like, give us all your data. We'll ban you from things. No problem at all. Just call over to the office there and we'll give it to you.
It is pretty handy, isn't it?
Just press delete and that gives them the floppy disk.
You've got a lot of stuff in the Examiner marked out. Here's the Examiner cover and it's honeymoon in London and it's Dele Alli and Jose Mourinho. They've been full-blown loving each other so far in public. You've got the
Barcelona stuff is interesting. We'll get into it with Graham Hunter a little bit later on, but it's Dermot Corrigan's piece today, which is really interesting. Kind of just a reminder of...
Griezmann's a sub, £120 million sub.
Yeah, so at the weekend they went for Messi, Dembele, Griezmann and Suarez together in a 4-2-4 formation. That was the first time they've all started together. It just didn't work, and Corrigan's making the point that Barca are now worryingly reminiscent of Argentina, where everybody just gives Messi the ball. They've forgotten how to play, says Catalan reporter Ramon Beza. He says that the team have lost their trademark midfield control and they just are desperate for a Xavi or an Iniesta, and that there is just increased pressure as well on Valverde, that despite the fact that he was, of course, a former Barcelona player, he's not seen as in the clique of Barcelona legends or a true Barca man. What Messi really thinks of the current situation is unclear, but the usually reticent public speaker has been clear that he felt the team needed Neymar last summer, while not denying he could, in theory, break his contract unilaterally and leave next year. So that is alarm bells ringing at Barcelona Football Club. We'll get Graham Hunter's take on that very shortly, because that is huge, huge worry that if Messi wants somebody, you probably go out and you try your very, very best to get that guy.
I think they did try their best, though, right? I think that they just couldn't make it work. This is his 700th Barcelona game tonight. Did you read it? You did read it. Do you know how many goals?
I've come already from this. Is it 520 or something?
612 in 700. It's insane.
Just go back to the Irish Times for a moment. Gordon Darcy's column is "We need to get beyond schools to grow the game." It's an interesting piece. He kind of says that a lot of the stuff that he says in this, he has written about before. But it's worth having this conversation every so often about the problem of players and falling away between primary school to secondary school and where the development is for players perhaps outside of the academies and outside of private schools, that the fall off in participation rates at club level has mutated the Munster or Munster DNA, I should say, when it comes to rugby, is one of the things that I'm looking at here, and it has kind of stuck out to me that, you know, we speak to Alan Quinlan a lot, Ronan O'Gara, and all that great Munster era that came through the club scene in Munster, which of course has been devastated over the past 10, 15 years. And the lack of focus on clubs, Darcy believes, is the root cause for Munster's inability to produce a flood of homegrown talent. And this is obviously a conversation we've had quite a bit. You know, you would jokingly say that the Leinster Academy is propping up Munster. The truth is that they're probably doing that to all the other 3 provinces at the moment, and the other 3 provinces are having real struggles in terms of churning out top quality young rugby players. Darcy says Munster must rediscover the old pathway, or they can keep recruiting South Africans and maintain short-term growth that way. The biggest challenge facing Irish rugby at the moment is the numbers in drop-off when it comes to teenagers and young adults. He'd love to see how the IRFU are tackling that. And he says one way would be by allowing a person to stay connected to their club from mini rugby all the way up to adults teams to keep that connection between the two. And then the other interesting point, which I hadn't really kind of heard made before, is that real and sustainable change will probably only occur in Irish rugby when the first generation of professional players begin to infiltrate the IRFU committee structure. We are in our 40s now, so it will take another 10 to 15 years before my peers rise to positions of influence. Now, he's not by any means having a pop-off David Nucifora in this piece at all. He's actually quite complimentary to the work that Nucifora is doing, but he's making the point that it's not just the golden generation of Irish rugby or the first professionals that need to go into coaching. They also need to go into the structural committees and bodies that actually run Irish rugby, because they know what it takes.
Yeah, but the difficulty is that as soon as they get into those committees, aren't they going to just become a function of the committee? That a Politburo in any organisation has been successful over multi-generations because they have a way of doing things that no one's ever going to influence, no one's ever going to change, that the Blazers stay the Blazers, and that you know, it's like Westminster, it's like any corporate bullshit, buzzspeak. It just becomes too powerful. It's a uniculture. So, like, it'd be great to see them all getting involved at that level now, as opposed to when their time comes and they've served their 20 years in committees. Like, but I don't think that's going to change. It's the IRFU don't seem like they're an organisation primed for change and self-reflection and analysis. David Nucifora is doing the review of what happened. Like, it was his job to put together everything that happened, and I'm sure at various stages Schmidt would have been saying, well, this is what we're doing, this is what our plan is. So ultimately he's rubber stamping that the whole way along, and he's conducting the review into it. That's not a great system, is it?
Not very independent of...
Well, it's like, what if he made mistakes along the way?
Yeah.
Maybe he didn't. Maybe he was absolutely perfect. It was, maybe Nucifora has nothing to answer, but wouldn't you like to have somebody other than him say that?
Yeah, like there's truth in that, and like it's not necessarily kind of pointing the finger at Nucifora and saying that there was clear failings here. It just helps if somebody else is actually taking a look at your work, and somebody a little bit removed from the situation. I think Darcy's thing about those people getting into committees in 10, 15 years, I'm not sure, is that kind of a slight at the general age profile of people at committees?
Totally, yeah.
But they just need to wait till
the killer line was the line about Munster, which you kind of brushed over that there. Just do it again.
So Munster must rediscover their old pathway, or they can keep recruiting South Africans and maintain short-term growth that way. Like he does make the point that Joey Carberry at number 10 and RG Snyman up front will probably win them a European Cup over the next couple of years, or will get them within shooting distance of winning a European Cup. But is that sustainable success in the future? Perhaps not. Like, what if the South Africans all of a sudden come up with a brand new pathway where actually everybody's really happy to stay in South Africa or something like that? That is a danger that kind of comes with all of that. No matter what your stance is on this, there is no negative way of looking at the prospect of Munster re-energising the club game or producing more players through the club game and getting it back to its old vibrant self, or some fraction of that at least. There can be no way of looking at that as a negative outcome.
All right, it is 5 minutes past 8 this morning here. You are watching OTB AM, the Sports Breakfast Show from Off the Ball. Oh, a few more papers left. I've got one actually, my turn for the Indo this morning, and they have the story that we had last night. Ryan to meet with O'Leary over Mayo funding row. Director General keen to find positive outcome to standoff surrounding Foundation's 250 grand. So, yeah, we had this story last night at 10:30. GA set to meet with Mayo millionaire donor, which is interesting. It's obviously the Mayo County Board officials met with Tom Ryan, the Director General of the GAA, and in correspondence that we've seen, Tom Ryan wrote back to them and said, he understands the difficult situation they find themselves in, and that he would be happy to meet with O'Leary, and he would hope that everybody would refrain from making further public comment on this until the matter is resolved.
I wonder how that meeting between Tom Ryan and Tim O'Leary goes. Hey Tim, you've got 250 grand there. Do you mind handing it over?
Well, I think it's
no, Tom, I won't.
Well, I think
Then
it's
what happens?
I would assume you have concerns about governance. We are the ultimate arbiter of what good governance is. You, as a fundraising body, can't actually fundraise for us without having somebody from the county board on your board. Do you have somebody from the county board? So technically, you're not really allowed to fundraise. That would be if we give you guarantees that this money will go where it's supposed to go, and we say that we'll put somebody in short term to make sure that happens, you're going to have to hand the money over. And you're also, if you want to fundraise in future, you're going to have a GA representative on your board. That's how that conversation goes.
It seems reasonable. It seems reasonable.
Like I'm not entirely on one side in this whole thing. I think that like it's great that the GA at central level are getting involved and saying we're going to help the Mayo County Board because they need help. It's got to the point where the whole situation has got wildly out of control, and like here is somebody with a strong financial background who understands exactly what's supposed to happen and all the procedures, and he's going to come in and say, well, look, hang on a second, you did raise this money on behalf of Mayo GAA. You have to give the money to Mayo GAA. We're going to make sure that it goes where it's supposed to go.
I wonder what level of fatigue the GAA feel deep down in the situation now, where there has been a couple of county boards in spots of bother here and there, obviously with the story about Cork last year and GAA potentially getting involved in trying to salvage that.
Páirc Uí Chaoimh.
Mayo now, like it comes back to the kind of overall
before
point.
that.
Yeah, the overall point here is that things are getting out of control for county boards. The figures are getting bigger, the stakes are getting higher, and Croke Park, I don't know what Croke Park do here, because every county board probably needs some level of autonomy.
Well, I think that we talked about this before with the East Leinster project. The provincial councils have a big role to play in that they all have administrative staff who are well qualified and who understand exactly how county boards work, and they could be the devolved local government that actually provides the back-end services of accountancy, auditing, regulatory, all the stuff that you're supposed to do in a business. They could provide that for the county. So you could have somebody whose job it was to look after Wexford and Wicklow. You could have somebody whose job it was to look after Kildare and Carlow and Laois. Like, that's where, you could devolve that so it's not just all done from Croke Park. So the Connacht Council, if they have 3 or 4 employees who are accountants, they could be running all that kind of stuff for them and making sure that all of this stuff is run properly. I think there's definitely a model there.
But there needs to be a model. The current guise of the GAA and administration just simply isn't good enough. It's not only the matter that Mayo GAA found themselves in the situation, and I'd have a lot of sympathy for them finding themselves in their situation. It's also about how they've handled this, and there doesn't seem to be any appetite for them to actually take huge lessons from this or actually be contrite in what's actually happened. And the sympathy that you would have had for them at the very start of the story emerging seems to have waned a little bit over the past month or two, without question. So I think it's inevitable that Croke Park have had to step in. I'd just be very eager to see what the resolution is here and what Croke Park can do in terms of providing Tim O'Leary with what he needs document-wise.
Yeah, but also, like, Tim raised the money on behalf of Mayo GAA, so he needs to give to Mayo GAA. Mm-hmm. Like, didn't he?
He did, but he raised the money on the premise that
it was going to Mayo GAA.
Specific areas of Mayo GAA, which he feels he does not have full clarity on those specific areas. And
well, were the people who bought the tables, did they?
Like, this is a
they all sign up to his definition of what that was? And also, did he have somebody from the Mayo County Board on his board? And if not, then it's unofficial. Like,
there has to be a level of onus on Mayo County Board for not having a member of their board on his board as well.
No, there isn't. No, there isn't.
There kind of is, though.
There isn't. He sets up this body that says...
It's a two-way street.
No, because it's in the GAA's rules that if you're fundraising for a county, then somebody from the county board has to be on it. So if you set up a funding organisation, it's on you to make sure that you're compliant with the rules of the organisation you're raising money for, right?
But it's also
you go off and you do this
it's
thing.
compliant on the county board as well to affiliate themselves with it, to promote this thing, to make this thing look like it was fully official. Like that, like if the county board had any sort of reservations,
No, we're not going to take your money unless you put one of us on.
well, that reservation.
It's his job to know the rules of the thing that he's doing.
I'm not necessarily sure it's exclusively his job. I think that
it's like maybe 90-10 as opposed to. It's not
I don't know about
thing.
that. I don't know if it's 90-10.
Well, you go off and you take the name of Mayo GAA and you start raising
Give
money.
the name of Mayo GAA as well.
You sell tickets to a massive event on the basis of that, right? Like, and everybody's going, I'm buying this to give money to Mayo GAA, and you're like, well, actually, maybe I'm just going to hold off to make sure that it goes to this little part of Mayo GAA that I decide it's going to.
Which would have been predetermined. But I
didn't know that when I'm buying tickets. I'm just going to celebrate.
What we've got here is just two different accounts. Like, we're as entitled to believe O'Leary as we are to believe the Mayo County Board, and he's making the point that it was predetermined where it would go to, and he would get proof for that, and that proof has not been forthcoming. This is an event, let's not forget, that took place in the United States of America, where tax authorities can clamp down on things pretty quickly. Like, there's elements of that as well, where he needs exact proof of where that exact money that was raised in the United States is going to. I don't think it's 90-10. I think it's closer to 50-50.
All right, 11 minutes past 8 this morning here on OTB AM. Let's move on and talk some European football. Graham Hunter is with us.